Good morning. Welcome to RBKC's Licensing Subcommittee, and thank you for attending. Which side are you on? Oh, okay. Maybe if you move down, that would be helpful. Thank you. Perfect. Okay. I'm Councillor Janet Evans. I will be chairing this meeting. The committee for this hearing comprises Councillor David Lindsay and Councillor Abdullahi Noor. We are joined by Fiona Johnson from the Council's licensing team. Our legal officer, Michael Feeney. Also with us are our committee officers, Tommy Hanmer, Jerome Treherne, and Holly Weaver. Before we start the hearing for this case, just a few ground rules. Please keep your microphones on mute until you are invited to speak, as only 2 microphones can be in use at any time. And please make sure your mobile phones are on silent. Thank you. The case before us today is an application for a variation of a converted casino premises license for Silvertime Casino, 46 to 48 Notting Hill Gate, London West 11, 3HZ. I confirm that I have no declaration of interest to make regarding this item. Do the other members have any declarations to make? Councillor Lindsay?
None.
Councillor Noor?
None, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. For clarity, I will outline the procedure of the meeting, which has already been circulated with the papers. First, First, the licensing officer, Fiona Johnson, will give a brief outline of the application. Please, could you confirm your attendance?
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Next, the applicant, represented by Mr. Andrew Woods, will present their submissions. They will have up to a maximum of 10 minutes to do so. Please, could you confirm your attendance?
Good morning and present. Thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to say, because so many objectors are speaking, we may allow you a few extra minutes. If you need it, let us know, okay?
Thank you, Chair.
Then questions may be asked by members of the committee, the legal officer, and objectors of the applicant. Next, the objectors, Councillor Joanna Gardner, Sophia Lambert for the Ladbroke Association, Fiona Fleming-Brown for the Pembridge Association, and Jonathan Bell will present their objections. They will have up to a maximum of 10 minutes each to do so. Could you all confirm your attendance, please?
Confirmed. I think we also have a few additional speakers. And I don't know if Mr. Bell is here.
We said he is here.
I don't think so.
He's not here.
We haven't yet met.
Okay, so 1 minute, please.
And could the other people who wish to speak just identify yourselves, please?
So we have said to Holly that there will be Mary Hinton will call Alex Das and Danielle, sorry, rewind. I am calling a witness, Rasha. Sophia is calling a witness, Alex Das and Tamara. And Mary Hinton, who is a registered objector, is going to call Danielle Roberts. Holly has all the names.
Okay, thank you. Just when it comes to your time to speak, if you could just sort of clearly state your name so we have a record. Thank you.
Then questions may be asked by members of the committee, the legal officer, and the applicant of the objectors. After that, we will ask our legal officer, Mr. Feeney, to deal with any questions he may have, and then he will lead on the draft conditions session. The list of potential conditions has been circulated to all of the parties prior to the hearing. Please, could you confirm your attendance?
Morning, Chair.
Then finally, we will turn to the governance team to see if any issues have been raised that we need to consider. There'll be no summing up, and the meeting will end. I would like to remind everyone that the committee has read the papers that have been circulated to the parties, so there is no need to repeat their content. But please do draw our attention to certain points and pages. Let's get going. Fiona Johnson, please can you outline the case for us and advise if there has been any additional documentation received? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, all. Today's application has been submitted by Silvertime Casino Limited for a variation of a converted casino premises licence. Silvertime Casino Limited holds a converted casino premises licence granted by this authority on the 31st of August 2007 in respect of a casino formerly situated at 1A Palace Gate W8. The variation itself is being sought to relocate the formerly Palace Gate Casino from 1A Palace Gate W8 to 46 to 48 Notting Hill Gate W11. A copy of the converted casino premises licence is attached as Appendix A, and it should be noted that the licence allows for 24-hour gambling. A copy of the application and proposed plans of the premises are attached as Appendices B and C, respectively. The applicant has also submitted a copy of their local area risk assessment. A copy of the risk assessment is attached as Appendix D. The licensing authority has received 51 representations objecting to the application. These include representations from Councillor Joanna Gardner, who is one of the ward councillors, and 2 local residents association groups. Summaries of the representations can be found at pages 5 to 7 of the main bundle, and copies can be found at Appendix E. The Planning Department has not raised an objection to this application, and a copy of the officer's comments is attached as Appendix F. In determining this application, the committee must have regard to the representations and either grant the application or reject the application. If the committee is minded to grant the variation, conditions may be attached to the licence, provided the committee does not attach a condition which prevents compliance with a condition on the applicant's operating licence. Nevertheless, this is a matter for the committee to determine in light of the above matters and any others it considers material. Chair, there have been several additional documents that have been circulated since the main dispatch of the committee agenda. So if it's okay with you, Chair, I'd just like to go through them to ensure that everyone has copies of them.
Please.
So one of the documents that has been circulated is a list of draft suggested conditions, which looks like this. And then we received additional comments from Councillor Gardner, which was circulated on the 25th of November at 11:41, which is an email and a document which looks like this. Additional documents were circulated by Sophia Lambert from the Ladbroke Association on the 25th of November at 12:45. And it's an email with one page which looks like this. Another document was circulated by Fiona Fleming-Brown from the Pembridge Association to Silvertime Casino Legal Counsel, and that was circulated on the 26th of November at 11:17. I think everyone has that one. Okay. There's also a petition with signatures, submitted by Councillor Gardner with the prayer to ask the Council via its Licensing and Planning Committee to refuse permission for a site that operates 24 hours a day in Notting Hill Gate. This was circulated on the 4th of December at 11:57. And now moving to the applicant's additional evidence. There was also a letter circulated on the 2nd of December at 16:22 from Andrew Woods, and that consists of 4 pages. And then finally, there is a case summary of the application to vary a casino premises licence. That consists of 224 pages from Andrew Woods, and that was circulated on the 2nd of December at 16:44. Okay, I'm not aware of any other additional documents, Chair, so I don't know if any of the parties are aware of others.
Did you also receive the petition from the MP Joe Powell?
Can you put your microphone on, please?
Did you also receive the alternative petition from MP Joe Powell?
Okay, a petition was received from MP Joe Powell, but unfortunately it was outside of the 28 days representation. The only way additional documents could be circulated was if it was circulated by someone who had made a representation within that allotted time. And I do understand that someone associated with MP Powell was advised of that.
That's fine. Now for the applicant. How many of you will be speaking?
It will just be me, Chairman. The other 3 are available for questions, but I will be making the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Go.
Thank you, Chairman. I hope to be able to do this in 10 minutes because we've served a significant amount of evidence which we hope satisfies the committee in terms of the concerns and the representations which have been raised. So hopefully I can just highlight 1 or 2 of those and deal with this in 10 minutes. In terms of the people sitting to my right, to my immediate right is Mr. Ed Reid. He is the 100% owner of Silvertime Casino and Silvertime Amusements. It was a business which is started by his father 30 to 40 years ago, and Mr. Reid is the owner of this business. To his right is Mr. Parmaki, who is head of operations. He's the operations director, and to his right is Mr. Wheeler, who is the finance director. The business is an independent operator of gambling premises. All 3 are very much hands-on. The application is set out in detail in my case summary with supporting documentations. This is a significant investment by this business in the licence and the premises, and this application is the first of 3 applications which need to be made to RBKC for these premises to open, subject to today a planning application and an alcohol licence application will be submitted, and several of the matters which have been raised by those sitting on my left will certainly be picked up in planning and alcohol matters. The background to the licence is set out in your committee papers. I think the casino licence was first granted in 1970. It's traded 24/7 since then with no regulatory issues. None of the concerns expressed have come to light at the casino. Mr. Reid operates a gaming centre just round the corner from this at 10 Pembridge Road. Those premises operate 24/7 as well. He has operated those for over 15 years. He knows the area very well, and those premises operating 24/7 have not caused any regulatory concerns. So we have a licence which has been in existence for over 50 years, operating 24/7, and an operator operating in this immediate area for over 15 years with no issues at all. We have liaised with residents and councillors. We've had a Teams meeting, we've had a site meeting with Councillor Gardner, Fiona, Pembroke Association, Ladbroke Association and other residents. This led to a letter from me to them proposing 18 conditions. There are currently no conditions on the gaming licence. We proposed 18 conditions to hopefully alleviate any of their concerns. And may I say at this stage, I've seen Mr. Feeney's documents with the additional comments and conditions in red. I have no comments on that. We are perfectly happy with the additional conditions which have been proposed by them. In terms of the representations and concerns, we of course take that very seriously. We are an operator in the area. We will continue to liaise with the operators should we be fortunate to be granted today. I've assured Councillor Gardner that I will sit down with her and anybody who wants to before we submit a planning application, and we will liaise with them moving forward. We understand their position and we want to work with them. We say that the measures which are set out in our documents, the measures which are set out in the statements and the conditions alleviate any concerns and allow you to grant the application. As a lawyer representing the applicant, I should also say that some of the concerns may not be particularly strictly relevant to a Gambling Act application. Mr. Feeney will, of course, advise you on that. But that's not a stance that we've taken as a company. We've tried to deal with any of the concerns which have been raised in terms of the conditions which we proposed. So our evidence, which I apologise for the length of the evidence, but a lot of work has gone into this from the applicant. It consists of my case summary, which hopefully is helpful to you. It consists of a local area risk assessment in which we assess potential risks in the area and we put forward measures as to how we are dealing with this. We do this in all of our sites, as do other gambling operators, but the local area risk assessment sets out the measures that we have in place in some considerable detail. We've looked at policy and we've submitted a document dealing with RBKC policy and how we comply with the policy. We have a statement from Heidi Lawrence, who's a previous licensing officer at Westminster and Camden. She's visited other casinos in the area, reports no issues of concerns at the other casinos in RBKC, no issues with crime and disorder, no issues with protecting the vulnerable, and actually no issues with noise nuisance, although strictly that's not a Gambling Act matter. And then there's a detailed statement from Mr. David Mills, who will be head of the Compliance Committee. He is a very experienced compliance officer, and he sets out in more detail than in the LARA some of the measures which will be in place. The proposal is that we go over and beyond what is required. For example, there will be facial recognition of everybody who walks into the premises. We will have an SIA door supervisor on the front door 24/7, which many don't. And the reason for that is both to control those who are coming in, to make sure that nobody underage comes in. We have Challenge 25, as you would expect, but also to control anybody who might be outside the building. So if somebody goes out for a cigarette, in our experience, that number is not significant, but we'll have somebody there controlling anybody who might be stood outside and controlling anybody who will be leaving the premises to ensure that they are compliant. We have an operating licence issued by the Gambling Commission. I'm sure that committee members are aware, but before we can make this application or any gambling application, we need to be approved by the Gambling Commission as a responsible operator. And part of that is that we have to submit policies and procedures, management structures, to satisfy the Gambling Commission that we are a responsible operator who will promote the 3 licensing objectives: protecting the vulnerable, keeping crime out of gambling, and making sure that gambling is fair and open. And the Gambling Commission are completely satisfied that as an operator, we promote the licensing objectives, and we also promote the licensing conditions and codes of practice. Again, if you've not come across those before, they are 100 pages of conditions which the Gambling Commission say that gambling operators need to comply with if they are operating premises in the UK. So on top of the measures in the local area risk assessment, on top of the measures with the conditions and the measures that Mr Mills sets out, we have 100 pages of conditions to comply with from the Gambling Commission. So I would hope that you are satisfied that we are an experienced and competent operator. There is no objection from the Commission. There is no objection from the police in terms of crime and disorder. I'm bound to say there's no evidence that casinos in RBKC cause any crime and disorder. There's no evidence put forward to suggest that. There's no evidence to suggest that they don't protect the vulnerable. But we understand the concerns that have been expressed by the local residents, and will ensure that we work with them. And we've agreed other matters which might not be strictly relevant to gambling, but I'm happy that their conditions, such as we were asked to ensure that the skylight and doors at the back of the premises are shut at all times because of some residents at the back. And we've been asked to liaise with them over the building itself and signage, which of course we will do. I hope that you are satisfied on all of the evidence presented that this application can be granted. There is no reason or evidence in my respectful submission why it shouldn't be, or why there should be any change to the 24/7 nature of this licence, which has been in place for 50 years. Of course, Mr Feeney will advise you on the test which is set out in the Gambling Act, which is on page 7 of your committee papers. I'm sure you're aware of that, the aim to permit nature of it, and the 3 licensing objectives, which are very different to alcohol licensing objectives and are very different to planning considerations. And we, of course, appreciate that we will need to deal with those next 2 steps if you are kind enough to grant this application today. We originally, and this is my last bit and then I'm done, we originally applied for 3 floors, although the 2nd and 3rd floor were very small. We spoke with Councillor Gardner and the Residents Association, and we've removed floors 2 and 3 from the application. So the amended plans just show a ground floor and basement. Half of the basement will be non-gaming and will be a cafe bar area where people can sit and have a drink but not game in that particular area. We're required to have an area for non-gaming. I hope that all of the conditions and Lara deal with everything else. I would ask that you deal with this matter under the Gambling Act, the petition prayer, for example, and we take seriously everything that's said. The petition refers to not wanting this and planning not granting it. That will be dealt with by planning as to whether the change of use application at this site is appropriate. But I respectfully submit that under the Gambling Act 2005, on the evidence that is submitted, this is an application which can be granted. I hope that assists, and we're all 3 of us available for any questions. 1 minute over, sorry.
Thank you very much. Any questions now from the committee? Councillor Lindsay.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You alluded in your speech and in the submissions to concerns for the vulnerable. Can you just tell me what is going on a macro level with Game Aware? Because there are certain places in your submission when you talk about having notices saying people who are in difficulty can get in touch with it, and yet I understand from Fiona Johnson that it's not clear what's happening to Game Aware after, I think it is March, April next year. So a little bit of help on what you're going to do when, if it does come to an end, you're going to do would I'm sure be gratefully heard by not only myself but also some of the objectors.
Thank you. So in terms of protecting the vulnerable, Mr Mills refers, and this is answering the question, to the 3 lines of defence, and that means the 3 lines of looking after potential vulnerable customers. And the first line of defence is that the minute any customer walks into these premises, first of all, as the SIA doorman, that members of the staff will be on the floor of the proposed casino, and it is part of their training to assess immediately when somebody walks in whether there is an immediate sign of concern that the people need to be spoken to about whether they should be gambling. So that's the first line of defence, and that conversation is known as an interaction. It is a requirement of the Gambling Commission that we interact with customers. 20 years ago, customers could walk into casinos and just play and not be spoken to and just get on with it. Things have changed dramatically from the Gambling Commission and operators, and it is a requirement that we interact with customers. So, for example, if the initial assessment is fine, if a customer stays in the premises for more than 30 minutes, 40 minutes, the staff will then go and have a word with the customer and assess whether the customer is happy, is not in difficulty, is not vulnerable, and that's all part of a fairly extensive training programme. We also operate a self-exclusion scheme, which Mr Mills refers to, called SENSE, whereby customers self-exclude from gambling premises in the area, and there is a system for sharing that information. And we also operate a casino system called NEON, where for those people who are playing at the tables, we are recording the extent and level of their spend, and we are required by the Gambling Commission to interact with them at regular and certain stages. So the way that casinos operate in 2025 is very different to when this licence was first granted in terms of regular interaction to ensure that potential vulnerable people are protected. If anybody requires assistance, then the initial assistance would be given to them by the staff. But in terms of Game Aware and other charities, we would have signage and leaflets available in the premises, which we would give to customers who may be potentially vulnerable, and this would direct them to charities or help services which would help vulnerable people in terms of gambling addictions. So whether it is Game Aware or another charity, we would have facilities available for information to be given to these people, to anybody who is potentially vulnerable, and we would assist them in seeking help if they need to. It might not be Game Aware, it could be another charity, but there will always be leaflets and signage available. And importantly, it's one thing having leaflets, the staff will be trained that if there are concerns about vulnerability, A, that person would not be allowed to gamble, and B, that person would be given help. It is a significant part now of being a responsible operator. Sorry, I hope that answers the question. I'm going to move seats because I'm in the firing line of the sun as well.
Thank you for that. And yes, I can see you are in the firing line from the sun. Sorry, just to tease out a little bit more from Game Aware, I think my concern, and I surmise that it may be the concern of one or two others here, would be the most vulnerable. And it's just that you can give assurance that there will be signposts within the area to Game Aware or its successors, whatever they may be, for those who need it, if Game Aware does cease to exist in the next month.
We would do that as a matter of course, and I'm more than happy if Mr Feeney is that there is a condition on the licence that there is prominent signage and notices advertising Game Aware or similar charities, because there will be, and if it's not Game Aware, it will be somebody else. We will do that, and I'm happy that's a condition.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Noor.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I've got a couple of questions, but let me put just the first one is, I mean, what experiences do the operator have in running? I mean, I know you say the owner has over 15 years of experience, but I'm now referring to the new location. And also, what changes, if any, you anticipate in the new location?
So Silver Time was started by Mr. Reid's father about 30 years ago. We have 15 premises, predominantly in the London area. I think the most north is Watford, but we have premises right in the middle of Chinatown in Westminster. We have premises on Edgware Road, and I think most importantly for this, we have premises just round the corner at 10 Pembridge Road, where we have been operating for over 15 years. So we are a very experienced operator of gambling premises in London, and in particular in this particular area, which we know very well from the Pembridge Road shop. And in terms of changes, I think it's set out in the documentation that this isn't going to be a large casino at all. In fact, I would suspect it will be the smallest casino in our BKC. We anticipate, I think it's in Mr. Mills's statement, there will probably be 8 gaming tables on the ground floor, maybe 20 or 30 electronic machines. You can play electronic roulette on the ground floor, and maybe another 20 in the basement area. So in terms of numbers of gaming positions, for want of a better description, this is a fairly small casino by RBKC and Westminster standards. It will be fitted out to the highest standard. Mr. Reid's premises are always fitted out extremely well. It will look extremely smart. We will liaise with Fiona and the Residents Association in terms of the outside. We've said that we wouldn't get permission, but we don't want neon lights or anything like that. We're not aiming for that sort of customer. It will be very discreet signage, similar to what the bank used to have. And inside will be a high-quality environment with the 8 tables and the 30 to 40 machines.
Thank you. My second question is, I know you have explained in your presentation, but can you touch on the measures you will take on to minimize noise disturbances in the nearby residents and passerbys?
So in terms of noise, when we make the planning application, and no part of my presentation is to try and be a lawyer and argue particular points. Of course, noise itself isn't a Gambling Act licensing objective, but we need to deal with this with the residents, and we'll deal. So the first thing is the frontage is on the High Street, Notting Hill Road, that you'll know well. At the back of the premises, there are residents. We have agreed with Fiona at the Pembroke Association and others that no public will go out of the back. No members of staff will be allowed to have a break at the back of the premises. The back door, the skylights, the windows will be closed at all times. So we'll protect the noise from the back of the premises in that way. In terms of we will have a dispersal policy which is conditioned at condition 19, which we will make available to everybody. And in terms of other noise generally, casinos are not noise generators, but we, as part of the planning application, we are having an independent noise acoustic report carried out, which I'm more than happy to share. And those reports will make recommendations to ensure that there is no internal noise breakout that will impact on the local amenities. So the answer is, in terms of the planning application, we'll have this independent report done. I've instructed Big Sky Acoustics, who I've worked with before. They're very experienced in London. Their report will have recommendations, and we will comply with them. I didn't really want to say figures, but this is a significant investment by Mr. Reid, and the last thing he wants is A, to fall out with the locals, or B, to have any complaints. So there will be a noise insulation scheme that will be complied with, and any recommendations will be inputted, and we'll continue to liaise with the residents over that.
Thank you. Can you give us the expected customer capacity in the new location, and how many staff will be working or on duty at any given time?
So overall, we expect to be employing between 30 or 40 staff overall. Clearly, there will be various shift patterns, but in a casino, unlike, for example, maybe in a betting office, there will be certainly in excess of 10 to 15 staff working at the premises at any one time, because you will have those people who will be at the tables, you have somebody watching the people working at the tables, you have people watching people playing the machines, you have a compliance officer, and you obviously have other staff who are working, looking after the customers as well. In terms of anticipated numbers, if this is a successful business, at peak times on maybe Friday or Saturday night, if we have 30 people in the premises, then we will be very happy with that. That's the sort of figure where we will be doing well in terms of numbers of attendees. During the week, we would expect to have, if it's successful and opens, a steady flow of maybe 10 to 15 people in an afternoon and early evening. So casinos are not, as you may know, they don't have large numbers of people attending. There tends to be more of a steady flow, and those are the sort of numbers that we would project based on our experience.
Chairman, last question is, what assurances can you give to the residents who are worried about an increase in unsocial behavior and late night disturbances? I mean, it kind of related to my first question, but if you can touch on, please.
I suppose I'm bound to say that in our experience, the casinos and gambling premises are not generators of crime or antisocial behaviour. That would be my, nobody is putting forward, they're putting forward concerns, which I understand, but nobody is actually saying this is the evidence. But we need to be a responsible operator on Notting Hill. You see the number of people on the other side who have been very keen to have meetings with us, which has been very helpful. So we agreed at the start that not all casinos will have a member of door staff 24/7. And the frontage to these premises is not huge. It's an old bank, so if you think of a bank on Notting Hill Road, so having somebody on that front door at all times is there to ensure that people only the right people enter the premises, but also to ensure that there's no disturbance outside the premises, and also to ensure that when people leave the premises, they leave quietly. And when we have the noise acoustic report and insulation report done, we will be preparing a full dispersal policy, which I'm more than happy to discuss with Councillor Gardner and any authorities, to ensure that people are leaving the premises quietly. You know, if I can be very blunt about this, we have some residents who know exactly what they are doing and set forward those concerns very clearly. And if we know that if there are issues, they will be on to us straight away, and that's the last thing that we want. We want to be part of Notting Hill Road. So the staff, the door staff, the policies will ensure that there's no crime and disorder at these premises, and that people are leaving quietly and not disturbing the residents.
Thank you for your presentation. I have some practical questions to ask you, please. First of all, what games will be there? Will you be operating a sports book or no, that's not, just table games and slots, is that correct?
Yes, there'll be no Vegas-style sports book as such. There will be 8 tables, which will be a mixture of roulette, poker and blackjack. There will be electronic roulette, where I'm sure you know, but just for everybody, you can sit at a machine and play roulette. And there will be a gaming machines that you're allowed to have, that every casino has in. The old-fashioned pub-style gaming machines, but obviously the stakes are a bit more than in the pubs. So roulette, poker, blackjack at the tables, electronic roulette and gaming machines, no sportsbook.
Okay, and what about cards? Is it live poker or machine poker or anything like that?
Live poker at the tables.
Live poker
With
at
the dealer,
tables.
yeah.
Okay, now that brings me to the next question. What is your maximum bet? Do you have one?
We don't have one yet. We haven't set that yet, no.
And do you have a minimum bet? That would probably be the slot machines, right?
Yes. We haven't got into that detail of setting that yet. It'll be very similar. I can't remember what the Queensway. It'll be very similar to the casino on Queensway. That's the sort of level we'll be at. But I can't tell you, those figures haven't been set yet.
Okay. Are you going to be offering free drinks?
To certain customers, we are operating a membership scheme, but you can go in and play not being a member. I don't want to say it won't be free drinks to everybody. To certain people who are regulars and members, they may get a free drink, but it's not going to be an open door where if you go in, you get, certainly in America in casinos, you get a drink at the table all the time. We're not operating that. But to say that we will never give a free drink would not be right. There may be customers who will get a free drink, but that will be at our discretion, and it won't be a general policy.
Right. So, I mean, it's not only in America, but we have had casinos that young people would look to go there after the bars close in order to get a free drink. So I'd like to hear your position on that.
So we will not, as general policy, be offering free drinks. If people try and get into the casino just to have a drink, it will not be a free drink. If you are a regular customer at a table and we know you and you are a regular who we know, then we may give you a free drink, but certainly walk-ins off the street, etc., not playing the tables, will not be getting free drinks at all.
Okay. Since you have experience in the area, what is your target market, especially at night, late at night?
I mean, the target market would be, in terms of casinos, it's be middle range level customers, so we wouldn't be classed as a high-end Mayfair casino, nor would we be classed as some of the casinos at a lower end mass market casinos. And that's not a derogatory term, that's just how they are classed in the gambling world. We would not be that. We are going to be middle market. We're not aiming, you mentioned sports books, sports bars. We're not aiming for that. We are aiming for the middle range in terms of age profile, in terms of gambling, customer. Again, very, very akin to the Queensway. We were not aiming at youngsters. We're not aiming at high rollers. We don't want people just coming in and drinking. We want people coming in who are going to play the tables and the machines. We want to be a very high standard mid-range in terms of operation casino.
And 2 last questions. Do you offer credit to your customers? And if so, is there a limit?
No, we don't.
You don't? No. Okay, and let me ask my lawyer if I can ask the next question. Bearing in mind that Westminster has limited the hours until, I believe, 4 a.m. Is that correct? 4 a.m.? I think it's 4 a.m.
It might be 3 a.m., I think.
For Westminster? Okay. So bearing in mind, in order to make the residents happy, would you be in agreement to close at 2 o'clock, 2 a.m.?
Westminster hasn't.
No, I'm saying, would you be in
No,
agreement to
no.
close at 2?
All of the casinos in Westminster and RBKC are 24/7, and we want to be 24/7. There isn't any limits in Westminster at 3 o'clock for
I
gambling.
think that was in the papers. Can we check that, please?
Yes, I'll have a look. I think it might have been from an objector, so I can check whether...
I'm not sure.
Chair,
We have to check that.
Absolutely not. It's very, very important to be clear on this. We obviously know, and I represent many casinos in Westminster and RBKC. There is no limit on the gambling operations of Westminster or RBKC casino. Some may choose to shut at a various time, but we would ask that this 50-year-old 24/7 licence remains a 24/7 licence. Every other RBKC casino is 24/7, has a licence for 24/7.
How much of the business do you think would be around after 3 o'clock, let's say?
Casinos are generally a fairly steady flow throughout the day and night. So it's not, if you have an analogy to a pub or a club, they're going to be much busier later in the night. Certainly the nightclubs would be. Whereas casinos are generally a more steady flow during the day. Friday and Saturday nights will be more popular than Monday and Tuesday nights. But even then, it's important to be clear, if we have 30 people in the premises at midnight on a Friday night, that's a very good number for a casino of this size. That's the sort of numbers that if we get to, we will be very happy with. So we were not talking about lots of numbers, but our premises just round the corner is 24/7, which we've operated for over 15 years. We've not a single complaint about anything. So we're very confident and happy we can trade 24/7 here without issue.
Okay, I'd like to ask a question of your manager. Mr.
That would probably be Meto, Mr. Parmaki. He's
Yes.
yes.
Okay, so let's say someone is in there gambling and they lose a lot of money and they've had a few drinks and they get very upset and they would probably get upset with the casino. That's usually what happens. What do you have in place to control the customer who might get violent?
So casinos operate a system called NEON, which collects generally customer data. As we mentioned already, that customers on entrance are already being monitored by our trained staff. So any details or any signs of vulnerability will be registered pretty much immediately within the first half an hour or hour of the customers entering. There's always, on the venue floor, there's always a compliance officer monitoring pretty much the players' behaviors. So to get to a point where they are very angry because they've lost after the interactions is pretty rare, because we have taken measures to prevent this from happening. As we said, the gambling commissions have updated all their policies, and we have to comply with all these new policies to prevent any vulnerable people getting to a point where they do get angry. If it does come to a point where they do get angry, we would obviously be speaking to this customer, asking them to take a break, which is normally a policy we've been operating for a very long time, and obviously giving them any GAM care information or any advice that we can for them to seek any help if they do have a problem with gambling.
And will they be Will there be a lot of cash around from the customers? Do they put pound coins in the, or is that archaic and they use chips now? How does it work?
Casinos don't generally operate coins. It's more of a notes-based operation. So customers would be purchasing either for the gaming machines tickets from the machines that we have inside the venues, or they would be withdrawing cash from an ATM. Again, this is something staff monitor, so let's say if someone has been to an ATM and withdrawn £200, for instance, if we see a repetitive sort of behavior where they go back to the ATM a few times, that means now they're overspending of what their means were in the beginning, because otherwise they would have done it from the start. So again, it's cash-based. They would purchase chips to play on the gaming tables, or they would purchase gaming tickets, which are vouchers to insert into the gaming machines and play like that.
And if there's a problem with the neighbors or with the residents, how will they get in touch?
On one of our conditions, we have a direct telephone number to the manager of the casino, which will be available to any residents or resident associations. So there will always be a line of contact straight to the manager where any concerns can be raised, and it will be dealt with instantly.
Did you want to add to that, or?
Fine. I think, should we get past planning and today as well, I think it would be good after 6 months of opening, if we're fortunate enough to open, that we'd probably have a catch-up with Councillor Gardner and the Residents Association to see how things are going and if there's any issues. You know, they're very proactive. Although they're objecting, we've had some very helpful discussions, and I think it would be beneficial if that continues as well. And everybody has my details as well that I will pass on if anybody has any concerns.
Okay, maybe we'll discuss that at the conditions. Councillor Lindsay, you had another query?
I do. You talked about the casino being mid-range and hoping to have about 30 customers. Where are you expecting these customers to come from? Are they likely to be locals around Notting Hill Gate or from further afield? And if you can reference some of the other casinos that you operate where your clientele actually comes from in relation to the actual site, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
I think we're very clear that our customer base for this casino will be people from the Notting Hill and immediate area. This is not such a large casino that it is going to attract or drag people away from Leicester Square or other areas of Kensington. It's a smaller casino, and our customer base will be people working and living in the area who might normally have gone to one of the other casinos, and they'll come into ours as well. But there is no way that this will be a destination casino such as, say, the Hippodrome in Leicester Square. It will be very much those in the immediate locality working or living.
And presumably some of them will be current non-gamblers who will go there.
I suspect that there could be, yes, there could be, just as there could with any casino, yeah.
Indeed, no, thank you. And indeed any other organisation at all, including shops.
Absolutely, yeah.
And relate or not unrelated question, staff, where will you recruit staff from? And if you just talk briefly about the training they will get, that would be interesting.
So in terms of staff recruitment, we will obviously be advertising for senior positions within the business, and in our experience they are likely to be people who work at other casinos within London. Obviously nobody would be appointed to a senior management position without the necessary experience, and they also, for a senior position, need to hold a personal management licence which has been issued by the Gambling Commission, so that the senior positions in the management structure, I'm certain in my experience, will come from other casinos in London, and the other staff will be maybe local people or people who want to work in Notting Hill. The training is very detailed. I think some of it is set out in Mr. Mills's statement, but the training centres around the three licensing objectives. So it centres around the three licensing objectives. It centres around the LARA, the local area risk assessments, and it centres around policies and procedures. Because it's one thing having policies and procedures and measures in a local area risk assessment and the up-to-date NEON and SENSE systems, but staff need to know how all of this works and how to implement this at the premises. So nobody would work in the casino until they have received induction training on this. And clearly the level and extent of the training would be determined by the position that the people hold. We would then, the more senior, the more in-depth the training on local area risk assessments and policies and procedures, but everybody would receive induction training, particularly on the three licensing objectives and protecting the vulnerable and keeping crime out of gambling. So there would be a full training programme which would be finalised by Mr. Mills, who's head of the compliance committee. Everybody receives induction training. Everybody would then receive refresher training every 6 months. And as is set out in proposed condition 16, the training will include specific local risks, drug and alcohol awareness, homeless and street drinking, problem gamblers, interaction, record keeping. So everything which is in the local area risk assessment, which obviously centres on Notting Hill Road, and everything from the Gambling Commission will be in the training which everybody must take before they start. The level of training will be determined by your position.
No further questions from the committee. Any questions from our legal officer?
No questions, Chair.
Okay. Now, before you start your presentation, do you have any questions, not statements, please?
Yes, please. On page 41 of the applicant's additional information pack, it flags that the authority will expect the local area risk assessment to consider the location of schools, and specifically it says, and I quote, assessing staffing levels when a local college closes and students begin to vacate the grounds. My question is, the LARA refers to staff being extra vigilant on site for school truancy during the day, but it doesn't address stepping up door security at either end of the day. And I note that Heidi Lawrence, who came along to do a witness of the area, came along in August, which of course was school holiday time. So I wanted to know that if you really knew the area well, you would know that every business in Notting Hill Gate steps up its security as pupils congregate in Notting Hill Gate at the end of the school day, in particular the secondary school pupils of Holland Park. So I'd like to hear what the applicant proposes to do about the end of the school day.
Where's your question?
So, yes, I'd like to ask, why does the local area assessment not address that
Why is the key word? Okay.
There you go. That particular question that is in our own policy document. Thank you.
So we have stepped up security from a starting point of not having security, because there is just one entrance to this building. It's like the entrance door to the bank. It's not a huge entrance door that spans several feet. There is just one entrance door to these premises, and from a starting point of having the door open for people to walk in, we have gone to having an SIA door supervisor stood at that front door at all times. So whether that's at school leaving times or not school leaving times, nobody underage will be allowed into these premises. So it's not a case it's not a case of any time being particularly worse or easier. Nobody underage will get in, and there will be somebody on that front door at all times. So that would be how we would ensure that this is monitored.
Sophia?
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to question the assertion of the applicant that there are only 24-hour casinos in Westminster. According to the Westminster City website, the Silver Time Casino in Gerrard Street used to have a restriction which meant it had to close between midnight and 9 a.m. In 2023, there was a hearing of the subcommittee which allowed it to extend its hours, but only between, so that it only had to close between, I think, 3 o'clock. It could go on trading until 3 o'clock in the morning. So as far as we can see, there is at least one casino in Westminster which does not have 24-hour licensing.
That's wrong. We have 24-hour planning and we have 24-hour licensing, and we are open 24 hours.
You mean there was a subsequent hearing that allowed
Yes.
you to...
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I think it might be helpful to... Ms. Johnson, are you able to confirm the position?
Whilst the discussions were taking place, I was actually having a conversation with Westminster colleagues. They're unable to get into their database at the moment to give specific conditions, but they have confirmed that all casino licences are 24 hours.
And just to clarify, if the premises has a license for 24 hours, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's open 24 hours. It just means that they're able to be.
Could I just follow up and ask, when was that changed? Because all the evidence that everybody has been able to find has said that it stops at 3 a.m. So what was your date of change, and did you go to appeal, or how did you win it, please?
We didn't even need to go to a hearing. I think so. It won't have been this year. It was probably last year. And we put a variation in to change planning to go to 24/7, and that was granted by delegated powers. And then we applied to change the licence to 24/7, and that was granted without objections. I suspect it was, now I'm guessing 2024. I should also say that isn't actually a casino, but maybe I'm being pedantic there. It's an adult gaming centre, but we're 24/7 at Gerrard Street, which was granted, I think, last year without objections.
Could I just ask one further question? How many casinos in your portfolio do you own and operate?
This would be our first casino. We have bingo premises and adult gaming centres.
I'd like to add something. If you, obviously you want to make money, it's a business, but if no one's coming in on a certain night, will you just sit there and have your staff sit there till morning, or will you close?
Well, I suppose that's the million-dollar question. I think that would be, business will be slow probably to start with. I think it's such a hypothetical question. I'm not sure.
I'll ask the owner. Would you close if, let's say, your staff is sitting there, is it a storm or whatever, and there's just no business, or it's dry January or something? Would you just sit there and stay open 24/7, or will you close?
We would stay open.
Because?
Because that would be the shift that the staff would be working.
I see. Okay. Any further questions from the objectors? Nope. Okay, one moment, please.
Thank you, everyone. We're just going to take a short 5-minute comfort break. So we'll be back in 5 minutes, and then we'll start with the objectors presenting your submissions. Thank you.
Oh, this one here. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. The committee have come back, so we're about to restart the meeting.
Hello again. We will now come to the objector's case. Please, can you present your submissions? You each have up to 10 minutes each to do so, unless you're desperate to say more. And please do not repeat what someone else has said. It doesn't help. Okay. We will start with, who's going to speak first? Yeah? Please introduce yourself.
I'm Fiona Fleming-Brown. I was the founder of the Notting Hill Gate Improvement Group, and I'm a Pembridge Ward Safer Neighbourhoods member. I'm a Glassdoors homeless volunteer, and I've lived and worked adjacent to Notting Hill Gate for 40 years. I also chair the Pembridge Association, and as the Silver Time premises are in our conservation area, we know the location very well. I wanted to start by adding some details to the local area risk assessment and Heidi Lawrence's witness statement. Notting Hill Gate really suffers from low-level crime and antisocial behaviour, as you might expect in a major transport hub, with nightclubs and late-night takeaways. There's lots of low-level crime, which sadly isn't recorded in police stats, and that's exactly what we have here. Shoplifting below the prosecution threshold, street begging, substance abusers, homeless people, that sort of thing. We've also got a large number of resident vulnerable people. In Clanricarde Gardens and Linden Gardens, and there are residents from both of those roads here, we have houses of multiple occupation, short-stay hostels, and I regularly witness rough sleeping in Notting Hill Gate as part of Glassdoors work. 46 Notting Hill Gate is close to the boundary with Bayswater Ward, which has an even greater number of hostels and transient people. There's more serious crime-related vulnerability here too. The case of Cafe Diana is illustrative. It's less than 200 yards from the Silver Time proposed premises. And recently, RBKC licensing committee members and our association and Councillor Schmetterling worked with the Home Office and police to find at least, at various times, 7 illegal and undocumented workers employed at the premises, some of them of more than 2 years standing. Some were victims of modern-day slavery, some were paid solely in food, and one, tragically, was a traffic person. So Notting Hill Gate is a late-night centre with a significant number of desperate people. The problems they face will be exacerbated by a 24-hour casino, as these are often people looking for late-night solace from very hard lives. There are limited alternatives after 2:30 elsewhere, which is as it should be in an area with substantial residential profile, both on Notting Hill Gate and the surrounding streets. This isn't just my opinion. The University of Glasgow in February 25 this year, their research for the Gambling Commission highlighted that city centre casinos offering round-the-clock access amplify risks of addiction and harm. This application relies on a presumption to permit licence. While the 2005 Gambling Act allows such licences to be transferred, it doesn't require that the same operating hours or conditions should be automatically replicated in a new location. If it did, we wouldn't all be sitting here. The law is clear. Each application must be considered in the light of the current licensing objectives, the local environment, and the potential for harm. So a presumption to permit is not a guarantee to operate 24 hours anyway. It's a starting point. It's not a rubber stamp. And the local context, which I've referred to, and which others will speak about in more detail, is key, and it does support more restricted hours of operation. Silvertime isn't applying for a traditional high-end casino with only table games or a small amusement arcade with low-stakes machines. It's applying for a hybrid model combining both. And this creates some particular problems. The patterns of play, a 2022 report from the University of Liverpool noted multi-product players tend to have more intensive gambling problems and cross-gambling product persistence. The University of Glasgow research, again for the Gambling Commission this year, shows a stronger association between casinos and slot machine gambling and harm than was previously understood. The findings identify both casino table games and slot machines as highly associated with problem gambling, implying that environments offering both types present a compounded risk. The University of Bristol has a hub for gambling harms research, and in May of last year produced a synthesis of international evidence in a report, which evidences that the speed and continuity of play and availability across multiple products increases harm. The report discusses how high-intensity products clustered in the same environment heightens risk through increased access and opportunity. Low-stakes slot machines are designed for rapid repetitive play, which can be highly addictive, especially for vulnerable individuals. Table gaming, on the other hand, can attract higher spending customers, and that creates a different kind of risk profile. When you combine both in one venue, these two forms of gambling can feed into each other, drawing in casual slot players who may move with winnings to higher risk table games, or keeping table game players engaged between hands with machines. Operating this hybrid 24-hour-a-day model maximizes the opportunity for continuous play, so increasing the risk of financial harm, mental health deterioration, and problem gambling behaviors. A University of Glasgow report highlights that casinos offering round-the-clock access amplify addiction and harm risks. Nottingham Trent University has a well-respected international gaming research unit and has published multiple studies on situational characteristics of gambling environments. Their findings show that availability and accessibility, including 24 hours of operation, are key drivers of harm, particularly in urban centres where exposure is highest. Notting Hill Gate is an area with a significant number of vulnerable residents, including those in supported housing, people with mental health challenges, and individuals facing financial hardship and precarious habitation. Late night and early morning gambling carries higher risks, as people may be tired or isolated or under the influence of alcohol. A hybrid casino, open all night, offers multiple gambling formats under one roof, making it harder for individuals to disengage and easier for harms to escalate. And that's why a hard break of a closing time at 2:30 before morning business starts again at 8 is a proportionate and much-needed solution in this location. This is surely a late enough hour to be in line with other licensed venues across Notting Hill Gate. In fact, 2:30 closing often applies with some of them only on a Friday to Saturday, with earlier weekday hours. But it does give everybody a much-needed rest. Restricting hours to align with the surrounding late-night venues protects residents whilst allowing the casino to trade, and it supports the licensing objective, preventing vulnerable people from harm. Reduced hours also prevent Silvertime, who seek to be a liquor licence holder, from becoming a follow-on party venue for those turned out from adjacent venues at 1 or 2 p.m. Whilst their primary focus may be alcohol consumption, it's easy to see how they would be tempted to gambling too much at a time when they may exercise less than good judgment about it being time to go home. Silvertime has willingly negotiated conditions with us and the ward councillors, and we therefore ask that the proposed draft conditions are added to this licence, but that the specific wording of condition 2 refers reverts to the form offered by the applicant's solicitor, which we have previously submitted. This version prevents customers and staff from using the premises rear. Staff chatting, smoking and phoning, especially late at night, is a tremendous source of nuisance. And in this instance, we need to specifically protect residents in Linden Mews. We would also like to see condition 21 in the draft conditions of the 11th of December, which prevents nuisance from open doors, windows and skylights at the rear of the premises, returned to the wording volunteered by the applicant. This again prevents staff from using the rear apart from in an emergency or planned maintenance situation. And we propose an additional consideration limiting the frontage smoking area to no more than a total of 6 customers, to include staff. Customers and staff, a total of 6. What we're asking for here is a balanced decision with hours which are proportionate to the location and the risk profile of the business. This licensing subcommittee isn't bound to replicate the old Palace Gate licence in the very different environment of Notting Hill Gate, but you do have the discretion and the responsibility to ensure Silvertime's operation reflects the needs and character of this part of Notting Hill by setting appropriate hours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, who will be going next?
Thank you. I'll call Rasha as my witness as well. Thank you. Councillor Gerardo Gardner. I'm speaking as a local councillor for Pembridge Ward, where the site is situated. I recognise that this has probably been the most controversial application in my council career of 22 years, with residents and parents up in arms. And that is why I put forward the Pembridge Ward Councillors' petition of 720 objectors, so that this is on record. I can't say a casino is something we welcome to the ward, as it's not the sort of active frontage and destination venue we're keen to see as part of our high street. However, I do recognise that the legislation that this licensing authority is operating under dates back 20 years to Tony Blair's government and is based on aiming to permit the use of gambling, the premises for gambling. It's outdated and in favour of gambling. To me, and all the residents in the Pembridge Ward, it feels so wrong that this hearing is merely to consider the terms of the transfer of an existing casino licence from Palace Gardens, despite it being a completely different operator and, as we've heard today, their first casino and a completely new venue in Notting Hill Gate. However, it's on this basis that I speak on 3 aspects. 1, against the 24/7 opening, 2, the conditions offered, and 3, a request for an additional condition on advertising. Turning to the 24-hour licence, there is nothing, and I really do stress that, nothing in the immediate area that operates 24 hours a day, and the risk this poses in particular to the vulnerable and young. I didn't really recognise much of the ward profile in the applicant's local area risk assessment, despite living here for 30 years. It totally ignored the hostels in the ward, the beggars, the rough sleepers along and behind Notting Hill Gate, and nor did it profile 2 of the streets with the most dense housing and the highest number of social registered housing in the ward, which is so near to the site and where some of the most vulnerable in the ward live. These are the nearby in Linden Gardens, which is in fact the next street over, and that has 475 voters living in 345 flats, and Clanricarde Gardens, 354 voters over 257 flats. That's 2 streets alone, in addition to the single mothers hostel and the council housing in Pembridge Square, which run parallel to Notting Hill Gate. These are vulnerable residents, and they need a break from the temptation of a casino on their doorstep. A casino that is open 24 hours and never shuts its doors is likely to have a massive impact on their vulnerability. In addition, we're likely to see an increase in the street population as they move into the area for the night time and throughout the night trade. The casino will become associated with crime and disorder by virtue of it being a magnet that drawing late night, early morning trade into the area, and it will also prey on winners, the vulnerable, and those smoking or hanging around outside. The premises needs to shut for several hours a day so that these vulnerable people, whether customers, residents, or indeed rough sleepers, physically get a break, and with it that the crowds dissipate from outside. I propose a break from 2:30 a.m. to 8 a.m., which gives the operators 18.5 hours of trade a day. We have heard that this casino is the first for this operator. There's no record of their performance of operating a casino before, and I think this, combined with the location, means you shouldn't be granting a 24/7 license to them for their first casino. Secondly, as you've all heard, I've worked with the residents' associations and the operators to propose and agree conditions to approve today, and I'd ask that irrespective of whether there are other licenses that they might be better applied to down the line, I'd ask that they are attached to this license as it's the overarching license. And it will give some of the residents and objectors comfort that their concerns have been conditioned. And thirdly, I noticed that under the RBKC Statement of Gambling Policy, under 10.13, this licensing authority can impose restrictions on advertising the gambling facilities. I believe that given the location of 16 schools, as identified in the applicant's local area risk assessment, in the area and the fact that actually many of those pupils pass along Notting Hill Gate as they head to and from school, whether it's by foot or by car or by bus, that is key that this committee restrict the advertising both inside, on the outside of the building, and outside the premises. I'm particularly concerned that the large BT advertising screens outside the premises and along Notting Hill Gate and the rolling adverts at the bus shelters, all of these are highly visible to school pupils and vulnerable as they pass by or wait for a bus, and they're particularly prone to this sort of advertising. And now I'd like to invite Rasha to speak, to expand on a number of points that I made in my formal objection.
Sorry, could I just ask what your last name is, Rasha?
Yeah, Khouri. Khouri.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Gardner, for the opportunity to speak. My name is, as I just mentioned, my name is Rasha Khouri, and I'm actually opening the restaurant right next door at 50 Notting Hill Gate. And we're opening in March 2026. So Kin's is a modern Lebanese restaurant with a warm, welcoming dining experience for families, communities, and a premium neighborhood experience. We are currently, as you mentioned yourselves, investing significantly in the site and will be creating around 50 new jobs. By building our team, we want to contribute positively to the character and economic vitality of Notting Hill Gate. So today I want to raise two concerns I have about this application, which I believe are directly relevant to the licensing objectives of preventing crime and disorder and protecting children and vulnerable persons. One is the external smoking area. The application outside, and I saw in the conditions, mentions that anyone smoking outside will be monitored. I think that without a clear enforceable limit on the number of smokers, there is a few risks. One is the risk of overspillage into our area. The other thing is it's mentioned that you will put the people on the left-hand side, which is right next to our side. There could be intimidation or discomfort for customers entering into Kin's, noise or disturbance from people smoking outside, and also potential smoke drift into our area. Kin's at the moment has a limit of 6 smokers after 9 p.m., and we would request that the same limit is put on the casino. Also, I would add that if the SIA supervisor is managing people who are smoking, who will be the one managing the entrance and managing the limits of people coming in? So there might be something required of maybe adding somebody, or at your discretion looking whether you need 2 people at the door. Again, you mentioned not so many people, but I think it is something important to look at. Second thing, which you've also mentioned, is the signage. We are putting in a very elegant, community-oriented dining experience. Silver Time casinos are a little bit more flashy with neon lights and bright red and bright blue color schemes and a very prominent branding. I know that you've mentioned that this will be in line, so that's appreciated, but I think if the license is granted, there should be a communication that ensures discreet, non-intrusive signage in keeping with the area and sensitive to the neighboring uses. And one more thing I would just like to say is that as a direct neighbor, I was not contacted. And I feel that for something like this and to create a community that please, going forward, and the impact of all of this, if we can be kept in touch with everything that is going on. So, thank you very much.
Sophia?
Thank you. I'm Sophia Lambert. I'm chairman of the Ladbroke Association and also a trustee of the Kensington Society. The casino is just outside our area, but Notting Hill Gate is the main shopping street and transport hub, and also source of leisure activities for young people wanting to go to nightclubs, etc., because it has 3 well-behaved nightclubs. So that is why we are taking an interest in this casino. We are not opposed to the casino setting up in the old NatWest building. Our concern is to minimize the risk of adverse consequences for the community. I think I would like to endorse everything that has been said by my colleagues on the question of the 24 hours. I'm grateful for the correction from the applicants, who I have to say have been extremely constructive in all their engagement with us on the issue of the Gerrard Street Casino. I would, however, point out that there is no reason why this committee should regard itself as barred from requiring a break in the operation of the casino. It is a fact that all the casinos currently operating in the RBKC are 24-hour ones, but they are in very different locations. Usually it's sort of attached to grand hotels or in busy main roads, not in a shopping centre like Notting Hill Gate. We're particularly concerned about the possibility of young people coming out of the nightclubs and being able to go straight into the casino rather than going home as their parents would prefer. And we do see a risk to vulnerable people. So we would call on the committee to restrict the hours to 2:30 or 3, in common with those, to closing at 2:30 or 3, in common with those of the local nightclubs. We're also concerned about the signage. We're grateful to what the applicant has said about discrete signage. We think that the casino in Palace Gate had no signage at all. It was, I don't know if the applicants can confirm that. And we would...
Sorry, the signage is a planning issue, so we're not going to discuss it here.
No, can I just say that we see the signage as important because it can entice vulnerable people into the casino.
It's very important, but it's not a licensing issue. I'm just saying you can bring it up at the planning. They haven't gotten planning permission yet.
I stand corrected, but it is important in...
We agree with you that it's important.
Okay, well, I won't pursue it, but I do see it as a licensing issue because it pertains to the effect on vulnerable people. Anyway, I won't pursue that. I must apologise to the committee that I'm going to have to leave at 12:15 because I have a long-standing and unshiftable engagement. I think I've probably said my piece, but I will call as a witness Tamara Costa.
Hi, my name is...
Are you Tamara Costa?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Hi. I'm a resident of Linden Mews, directly behind the location, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Mews residents and the residents of Linden Gardens. So, whilst the Gambling Act of 2005 provides an aim to permit, Section 153, it is well established legally through the courts that an aim to permit is qualified and does not restrict the licensing authority's ability or authority to use their discretion to refuse a license where there is credible site-specific evidence that the license would undermine the licensing objectives, specifically as defined in Section 1, preventing gambling from being a source of crime or disorder, ensuring it is conducted fairly and openly, and protecting children and other vulnerable persons from harm or exploitation. On behalf of Linden Mews, which is directly behind, as I said, the site, and our neighbors, we object to this application because of site-specific risks, which would undermine the objectives of the Gambling Act. Regarding schools, there are 5 schools within 300 meters of the proposed casino site, 48 Notting Hill Gate, 46. The estimated total children in attendance of these schools is 1,400. This is a meaningful concentration of the borough's youth in a small area. Whilst we welcome proposed conditions to check ID of those that look under 25, it is only the exposure and ease of access to gambling in establishments, but also the well-established and documented increase in crime and antisocial behavior associated with gambling premises, which these 1,400 young children would have to deal with. These are issues that would disproportionately impact the children going to and from school. Hotels and HMOs, which are houses of multiple occupancy. 5 hostels and 1 registered HMO within a 300-meter radius of the proposed site. These types of accommodation are some of the most affordable in the borough, often house the most vulnerable in society. This establishment would be the 4th gambling premises in a small area, which represents unmitigable risk to those that are most vulnerable. It is also worth noting that these are community and medical facilities in the immediate area, which specifically offer help to those struggling with addiction. Gladstone's clinic, 250 meters away, offers support to drug, alcohol, mental health, addiction support. St. Peter's Church Hall, 250 meters away as well, weekly meetings, NHS charity to assist with drug and alcohol addiction. Once again, for those struggling with addiction and the most vulnerable, this site would represent an unmitigable risk due to the clustering of several gambling premises in such a small area. The existing gambling establishments are William Hill, across the street, Coral, 5 doors down from the proposed casino, and Silvertime on the same block round the corner. There would be a total of 4 gambling establishments within 250 meters, a degree of concentration not seen elsewhere in the borough of RBKC, and a burden that would be disproportionately felt by the local residents, children, and most vulnerable. Clustering multiple gambling sites in such a small, concentrated area will create tipping points with regards to increase in crime, disorder, and well-documented negative social consequences, particularly when police are already stretched and unable to respond with additional resources. The Met Police and ISER, Institute for Social and Economic Research, 2025 study in England and Wales included West London boroughs such as Westminster have showed gambling premises, casinos, betting shops, arcades, associated with plus 5 to 15% in neighborhood crime rates, in theft and burglary, for example. These aren't risks that can be mitigated by licensing conditions. For baseline crime, RBKC, but particularly Notting Hill Gate, already has a very high level of baseline crime. Already, the borough has 192 crimes per 1,000 people. That's 83% more than the national average. Opening a 4th gambling establishment, concentrating 4 in a small, highly populated and transit-oriented site, would amount to unmitigable risk. The borough, we would argue, already has a serious issue with crime and is under-resourced. Clustering of an additional, much larger gambling site would put further strain on existing resources. High level of ASB, antisocial behavior, already exists in the area, and there aren't really any conditions that can mitigate that. The licensing authority must prioritize protection over permission. In summary, it is well established by government, police, and academic study that gambling premises lead to increase in acquisitive crime, antisocial behavior, and negatively impact the most vulnerable in society. Notting Hill already has a level of crime which is 83% higher than the national average. Permitting a fourth gambling premise within 200 meters of 3 other establishments would create a cluster of these establishments and result in a subsequent cascade of unmitigable negative outcomes for the local residents, children, community, which is in direct conflict with the licensing objectives. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Alex Das here? Sorry, is Mary? Oh, it says an objector not speaking. Do you understand that?
She's just going to introduce.
She's not speaking, but she's going to introduce Alex. Okay, thank you. Danielle's not on the list. So I'm not sure. I'll have to take advice on that.
So Mary Hinton, who's registered as a speaker, is going to call Danielle, was it Roberts, as a witness. Okay, so Danielle Roberts, if you, I don't think we need the introduction. Okay. Danielle Roberts,
Hi,
if you...
I'm Danielle Roberts. I'm representing Fox Primary School. I'm the chair of their Fox School Association, and I myself am a parent, have 3 children at the school. Again, I know Joanna and Tamara were speaking about the schools, but I think with Fox Primary, our catchment area as a state school is approximately in the area where the 4 casinos are. Our school, we have about 415 children, 100 teachers, and of those children, 623 parents who are within the community of our school. And again, I'm just more establishing about the community. Our school is the top 10 in RBKC and top 20 in the country. And again, it's because of the community, the parents, and everything that we do to establish for the kids and the area. And I think it's quite important to also point out that as a state school, we do have many year 5, year 6 kids who do walk on their own and commute to school. It's quite common. And I'm not saying that they're going to go to the casino, but there is more about, as Tamara brought up, the statistics of just more the vulnerability of them walking by the casino and so forth. And I think just balancing economic benefits and needs of community, I think there should be a priority of safety and security for children. Again, I'm not going to repeat everything they said, but there is some excellent studies with Gamble Aware. I think you were speaking about it because that charity is closing at the end of March. And again, it's a government study, the State of a Nation report, and they just came out in December this year. And it talks about gambling harms in young people and advertising. And it's an excellent government study. I can't read that all because but it's on the website that everybody can find. I think it's very important that, as Joanna and Tamara were stating, the amount of young people in the area that this is in. And I can't speak on behalf of Holland Park, but again, I do have many parents whose kids are subsequently between Holland Park and Fox Primary School. And sort of just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
So I think that's everyone speaking on behalf of the objectors. So now it's for the committee to ask questions, if you have any. And I suppose if the committee member doesn't specify who the question is for, then up to you to decide.
Thank you. Councillor Lindsay, any questions?
The ward I represent is Norland, which is contiguous to Pembridge. And Norland has relatively low levels of crime of most sorts. And I think Pembridge does too. Is that the case, please? And I can see Sophia Lambert acknowledging that. And why am I asking? Can you speak? Because, my point is this, and if you can expand afterwards, Fiona. There is widespread concern amongst many of you about crime and disorder and so on, and yet the statistics are that Pembridge is not as acutely on the receiving end of crime as many other wards.
I think one of the problems in Notting Hill Gate is there's a lot of low-level crime. So police aren't active in shoplifting crime, for example, which doesn't reach a certain financial threshold. Very often the work that they do is advisory. So homeless and vulnerable people who are begging will be cautioned, they'll be sent to charities and things like that for help. So there's a huge below-the-radar level of crime. But the evidence of that is, as Councillor Gardner said, if you walk down Notting Hill Gate, you see the elaborate security procedures that all the supermarkets, for example, have put in. The restrictions that some of the shops say no more than 4 children or whatever. There's a lot of that sort of low-level crime. And late at night, there are also rough sleepers sleeping in our streets. Some of them are substance abusers, some of them are people with alcohol problems, and some of them are vulnerable or homeless people who don't want to go home.
I mean, I would just add, I also sit on the Safe Neighbourhood Board, and we do look at the figures and we laugh about them on the basis that a lot of crime is unreported. I know I personally live in a mews, and the amount of ASB that we just don't bother reporting these days. Notting Hill Gate, the crime statistics are much more modest than they actually are in terms of shoplifting. But also I think there is a fundamental worry that the later you have venues open, the more you attract certain type of person who's still awake late at night or indeed preying on others. So actually, there is always a challenge, and it's very hard to prove in the negative until something happens that you go, actually, you did bring in the... I hesitate to use the undesirables, but essentially you bring in, because you're open as a late night venue, you bring in more antisocial behaviour later into the night, or you attract people on their way home who are already somewhat inebriated.
Councillor Noor?
Thank you, Chair. I don't know who will answer, but I've got a couple of questions to ask. Are there any particular features you feel this side of the neighborhood make it unsuitable for the casino to open this particular location?
If I could just talk about the demographics of my ward, I have approximately 2,500 residents, of which just under 1,000 are on those 2 streets, Clanricarde Gardens and Linden Gardens, and they are the most vulnerable. So for me, the location particularly closest to Linden Gardens, which has the most social housing in the ward, does give me concerns, yes.
My second question is, I know there have been communication between the applicant and the local councillors and also the resident associations. Apart from your suggestion of either 2:30 or 3 o'clock, is there another option as a resident and councillors you will consider will make this premises a safe operator, at the same time will give peace of mind to the residents?
It's quite difficult. It's quite difficult to think of anything. The applicant has been very cooperative in providing lots of conditions that they're prepared to accept, and that will obviously have beneficial effects. But 24-hour operation, things happen at night, and it's quite hard to control them. So that's why we're in favour of restricting the hours.
Thank you. I mean, following that question, I mean, do you believe that the impact will be occasional inconveniences or something more substantial and ongoing if the casino opens? Yeah, if I repeat it, do you believe the impact this business will bring in will be an occasional inconveniences or something more substantial and ongoing?
I think it's likely that it would change the character of the area, because as gambling establishments become established and successful, then they attract a clientele. So as well as passing trade, they have their regular customers. And we don't want to see it becoming the go-to place for a large, vulnerable community of residents, and to bring elements from outside looking for a place of later hours and late-night drinking, as well as late-night gambling.
Thank you. And Chair, my last question is there anything further you would like as a local residents, the committee to understand about how this application might affect your quality of life and also the local communities?
I mean, I think you've heard from the applicant that they are looking to draw on the local area for their clientele. So for me, that brings a certain amount of alarm bells ringing, given the vulnerability, particularly of those in Linden Gardens. And I suspect Camden Ward across the road also has elements of vulnerability. I just think you need a circuit breaker. I think you need a time when a whole area can sort of stop and breathe, and that people can get sleep. And I know there is that genuine challenge of actually, if you either have an addiction or you're in, for example, a casino where there's no daylight, there's no fresh air, that actually you get drawn further and further into things. So for me, I would say actually give it a circuit breaker, and that's given the legislation that you are likely to have to permit this. For us as residents, it's what can you do to control, to try and, okay, they are coming into the community and they will be part of the community, but let's not make them dominate the community by virtue of 24/7, where there is nothing in the area that operates to those hours. I'll let others speak if they wish.
I'd like to investigate or explore with you what you perceive the actual risks are. Excuse me, let me finish my question. We've heard from the primary school, which, as far as I know, those children will not be allowed into the casino. And any older students, I have heard of students learning to gamble, but one that I've heard about is in a schoolyard at a state school, and the other one is a student in the Hall of Residence at a very well-known private boarding school. So I'd like to know what you think the imminent risk is, and also take into consideration the related crimes that have come into existence as a result of a casino in the area. Not fear, but actual situations, please.
I think there's quite a lot of very recent research about this, which I referred to in my speech. And I think the greatest danger is that people may well begin with gambling on their phone. The immersive and seductive atmosphere of a casino is very different. And specifically, the research shows that when you put live gaming together with slot machines, there's an accelerator factor. And I think that should be considered very, very seriously, because this is something that doesn't exist. The applicant's premises in Pembridge Road and the other gambling establishments are mostly adult gaming centres, so they are concentrated on slot machines or things like that. The ability for the admixture of gaming tables and slot machines is an accelerant and should be taken very seriously. I think the other thing is that traditionally a lot of betting shops have not been attractive environments, and so the statistics also show there's a huge increase in women gambling because women feel much more comfortable in clean, safe, regulated environments. But they are a significant proportion now of very vulnerable, troubled gamblers. If I were somebody living in a house of multiple occupation in Clanricarde Gardens, going into a bed that perhaps somebody else has slept in before me, I would find it very attractive to be in a warm, clean environment and to while away those early morning hours. But it's not a good place for those people to be. I think it is categorically not a good place for those people to be. We cannot prove, because the applicant has not operated in this site, nor have they even operated a casino before. We can't prove that there will be an increase in crime. But our common sense tells us if you put a lot of vulnerable people together in the face of temptation and there are no other options around, that it is likely that at least a proportion of those people will develop problems. That's what the statistics tell us. And this is a true pattern not just for the UK research, but the University of Nottingham has looked at international patterns of gaming. And I think we have to look at that sort of evidence. These are respectable academic studies, which in some cases are being commissioned by the Gambling Commission. And I think we should look at the specific elements of this application very carefully and consider that it's not the same as were Mr. Reid to be opening a second Silver Time slot arcade, like his application, his long-standing premises in Pembridge Road. It is very different. Nor, at the other end of the extreme, is it a discrete casino tucked inside a hotel, nor is it Crockford's or somewhere like that in Mayfair, where it's like a private membership model. This is something very different. And we think in this particular location, it's a very unhelpful addition to our high street.
So are you against approval of a casino altogether, or to limit the hours? And do you realize the difference between a betting shop and a casino?
Yes, I do understand the difference. I don't think that it is within the powers of this committee, and your legal counsel will advise us, for you to override the application to permit. But it is within your powers to restrict the hours which the applicant can operate in. And I think that that will be a proportionate and a reasonable thing to do, as this is their first casino. They are, after all, they've proved themselves adept at variation applications, which is how they were able to extend their Westminster license. But I think in the first instance, for their maiden casino, it would be very wise to restrict it.
Thank you, that's very helpful. Yeah.
Well, just to clarify very briefly, the committee is aware of the aim to permit principle. It doesn't mean that the committee can reject the application in its entirety. We understand the position that you're saying that might be difficult, but it is potentially an option, and you're saying, short of refusing it in its entirety, you'd ask for the hours to be restricted.
Okay, any questions from our legal officer?
Just one question on dispersal. Just wondering if the license did stop at 2:30 a.m. or 3 a.m., would that cause more problems from dispersal than if it was open 24 hours a day, because everyone would then have to leave at the same time at 2:30 a.m. or 3 a.m.?
I mean, I think there are two responses to that. One is it depends how many are on the premises at that particular time. And secondly, if, as you see, the Notting Hill Arts Club closes at 2 or 2:30, actually it's no different emptying people from both premises at the same time. It's actually salami slicing it throughout the night that is much more painful.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Applicant, do you have any questions?
Could I just ask two questions very briefly,
Please, you
Chairman?
can ask
Thank
as
you.
many as you want.
Just two will be fine. Could I ask Councillor Gardner, you make a great play on the 24/7 nature of the application, and you were keen to stress that nowhere else nearby trades 24/7. Are you not aware that Mr. Reid operates gambling premises just round the corner, which are open and trade 24/7 without issue?
I was talking about Hall of Notting Hill Gate, which actually is our major and our primary road, shopping street. There is nothing in Notting Hill Gate. So I would actually, if you specifically want to respond to that, then the only slot machine place and the only venue probably in the whole of Notting Hill Gate is, yeah, it is indeed the Silver Time slot machine. But it is slot machines, it's very small in relation size-wise, and I think the latest that we have in the area along Notting Hill Gate, I think it's 2 a.m. Notting Hill Arts Club, Vigianti 2:30 a.m. but mostly midnight. Munchies I think is 2:30 a.m. I mean, it's a massive outlier. I genuinely wouldn't have stood up and said. I apologise for missing out the Pembridge Road one, but I think you get my point that it is the only one and it's going to be the largest one.
So you're aware that Pembridge Road is 24/7 and has operated for over 15 years without any issues?
I am, and I objected to it when it applied as well. I'm that long a resident.
And having objected to it with presumably similar concerns, none of those concerns have come to fruition?
Can I say it's the most hideous building with the flashing lights? I mean, really, when you walk past it every night, it is very unattractive. Yes.
And just one question for Fiona, if I may, Chair, then I'm done. Fiona, you've introduced a word I've not heard before called hybrid casino and made a point about having live gaming and gaming machines. Are you aware that all casinos in RBKC, and in fact all casinos in Westminster, have live gaming and gaming machines as well?
I am, but the research that has partly formulated our response looks at the enhanced risk of those places. So the comments that we make about your establishment, draw on that research.
They would apply to all casinos because all casinos in RBKC have the same as we will have if we're granted a licence.
But not all of them are located in places of such significant vulnerability as Notting Hill Gate.
No more questions, thank you.
Okay, I think we will now, I welcome everyone to contribute because we would like to, oh, you want to ask one? Okay, so now's your chance, everyone, to put in what you would really like what you would really, really like. And I'd appreciate it, because this is your opportunity. And just raise your hand and we'll call on you and try to come up with some interesting conditions if we pass it.
So everyone has the draft suggested conditions. As everyone knows, this obviously doesn't mean that the committee has made up its mind in any way. It's just conditions that might potentially be imposed if the committee were minded to grant the application. So I'm going to try and go through and cover everything. First, condition 2 for the applicant. I think there was mention of that, instead of saying just customers, saying instead customers and staff. Would there be any issue with that?
No, that's agreed.
And then similarly on condition 21, this was mentioned by Ms. Fleming-Brown, so maybe if you could explain. I'm sorry, my note, I'm not quite sure what wording you wish to amend in condition 21.
Please turn on your
We wanted
microphone.
it to be clear that it was staff and customers. So,
agreed to that one.
yeah.
We're now on
No,
to
this
the
is 20. This is
21.
21. The windows and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, say again.
So that there's no, there's no customers and there are no staff going in and out of these areas unless there's an emergency, obviously, and there's got to be a fire exit.
You're talking about the doors.
Is that not covered by condition 2? Condition 21.
She's adding customers to the word staff.
No. Oh, right.
Yeah. Because it refers to staff, but we also don't want customers.
It's the caveat, it's the except for.
I don't think perhaps it's strictly necessary, because I don't think the customers wouldn't be going out there anyway. So I don't think it's strictly necessary, but if it provides comfort, we can add staff and customers.
Well, the rear of the premises does have a doorway, and it does have substantial windows. So we don't want open windows and doors, and we don't want customers operating them or staff.
I don't mind, but if you add customers to that, it actually says, it then would say customers can
Yes,
go out. It shouldn't have say customers.
The fact that
or else they can go out.
Yes. The exception is for staff only, because only staff should be going out there when they need to. If you add customers in, then you're saying customers can go out there, which under condition 2, they're not allowed to go out there.
Right.
So...
Could I just say, when we talk about except in 21, except when the doors are required for access or egress of the staff at the premises, I think that was referred to by Mr. Woods as for maintenance or security purposes. So at the moment, the exception is too broad because they're going in and out of the door, but
yes,
it
okay.
had been restricted for a purpose.
We'll take that on board and consider it. Thank you. Let me just make a note. Then for the applicant, I think also Ms. Fleming-Brown mentioned, and her witness as well, potentially adding a condition or amending condition 4 to specify that there should be no more than 4 smokers, including staff and customers at any one time. Any thoughts, comments on a condition to that effect?
Our only comments on that would be it is quite difficult in terms of enforceability, because if somebody walks out and walks away from the premises and then starts having a cigarette, so we would prefer that you accept that our member of door staff will manage the customers, any customers who are smoking, rather than put a specific number on it. We only anticipate a handful, but we would prefer that our policies prevail as opposed to a specific number.
Okay, thank you. So the committee will go away and decide.
Just very quickly, sorry, I'm next door and I have a limit on my smokers at 6.
Yes.
After 9 p.m.
Is that an alcohol premises?
An
license?
alcohol
On
premises.
the alcohol license.
Yeah.
I think, if I may, that goes back to the fact that this is the overarching licence, and if they were granted a liquor licence, it may be for even lesser hours. So I would ask, as I did in my, that we do look at the restrictions here as the overarching licence. Can I also just pick up on Andrew's comment that it isn't managed, it's managed, not monitored? And number 4. So it's that the SIA door staff will manage as opposed to monitor, i.e. you can just watch them. It was something we had agreed in our text.
Is that fine? Yeah.
No problem with that.
Yeah.
That's what they'll do. Yeah.
Can we include responsibility for meth as well?
I think the question is about litter, potentially. Is that correct?
Cigarette litter.
And cigarette litter.
Waste
We will, I'm not sure how relevant to gambling it is, but we will be tidying up, so I have no problem with that.
Okay, thank you. Just going through my notes. Advertising was mentioned. Now, I suppose there are 2 different types of advertising. There's advertising in the sense of sort of flashy signs saying Silver Time, and then there's advertising that there are in the forms of kind of leaflets and posters saying that this is a casino and, you know, there are gambling facilities available at the casino. In terms of the second type of advertising for the applicant, any thought given to a condition essentially saying that no source of posters or displays in the windows advertising that it's a casino? It's just you can say no, obviously.
I think any signage really is, we will have to make a signage application to the planning committee as part of the change of use application, and you know it should be decided by the planning committee. Yeah.
Could I say I was particularly concerned because BT have just got permission for a very large digital board outside the premises, literally outside the premises. And for me, I don't want us to put lots of conditions on the frontage, whether it's through planning or through here, and actually find that that's circumvented by this fabulous digital BT outside that is used for that sort of planning, for that.
But is that screen that's outside the premises? Yeah.
Literally outside the premises, yeah.
I'm not sure what is...
The answer is it does exist at the moment. It's the BT kiosk, and it's just had approval for an even bigger one that's even bigger and broader through the planning process.
It's outside the premises and not within the control of the applicant.
I think we should keep...
They can pay for advertising on it, and that's my request, that we don't, but they expressly agree not to advertise outside on that BT screen, because it's one of those massive hubs. I mean, it's broader than I am.
Let's keep the hearing within the parameters of what we can do.
But as I understand it, under 1013,
yeah,
there is power to control advertising. I don't know to what extent, and I'm happy to let your lawyer take that away to look at it. I raised it because it is flagged
fair enough.
As a comment.
I think we've got we understand what the residents would like, and we understand the applicant's position, so I think that's everything we need to go away and make a decision.
Excuse me, can I say something, Joanne? My name's Sandra Donald, and I'm actually a resident I actually live on Clanmacar Gardens, which is going to be a stone's throw away from where they want to set up their casino. And nobody wants there.
Well, sorry, this is just a chance to discuss the
saying,
conditions, and I'm not sure if you've been registered to speak
No,
or
I haven't
not.
been registered, but
So-
I'm still a resident.
That's fine.
Well, I'd just like all of them to be refused, all the conditions to be refused.
Okay,
thank you.
that's fine. Thank you. So, sorry, I'm just going through my notes to check. Just for the applicant, just to make sure we're all on the same page, that obviously the committee understands your position that you would like the license to be 24 hours and you don't agree to a restriction in the hours. If the committee were minded to restrict the hours, then the mechanism would be to disapply the default condition that applies to casinos and then impose a bespoke, more restrictive condition. Correct?
It would be to, yes, obviously we don't support this, but the default condition would then, so at the moment the default conditions are excluded, you'd have to have a reason not to exclude the default conditions.
I think I know the answer, but just to ask the question, you'd be against having the default condition, which for the objectors, the default condition is that no gambling can be provided between 4 a.m. and noon. And so you'd be against having the default condition as well.
Our starting point, yes, would be to be against that and to maintain the 24/7 nature of the licence as it has. You know, certainly in terms of morning operations, we get people going to and from work. So yes, we would be against that and would like to maintain the 24/7 nature.
Thank you. Then moving on to condition 15. We discussed this slightly during the hearing. I'm not sure if GamCare is closing or going away, but even if it's not imminently, it might at some point. So that condition could say prominent GamCare documentation, and then in brackets, equivalent advertising, help, charities, wording along those lines. Thank you. Let me just make a note. And then I think that is everything. I'm just looking through.
Sorry, I think there was a reference to a city council, wasn't there? Yes, 18. So this is copied across, I assume, from Westminster. An incident log shall be kept for the premises and made available on request to an authorised officer of the city council.
Yes, that can be changed, yeah.
Okay. And then one other thing. In the applicant's pack, they talk about audio recordings being held for 7 days, and yet CCTV for 31 days. I wondered if the committee had any comments or views on why audio weren't held for the same 31 days, and if that should be in the conditions.
I agree with you, actually. I think we should make it 30 days.
It's fine, councillors, we've no issue with that.
Yeah.
Yes, is that in the conditions anywhere, audio recordings?
No, it's just in the applicant's pack. It's in one of the...
So you would like it added to the conditions?
Yes, please.
Okay. And you're happy with that, so.
But, sorry, condition 7 is on CCTV. CCTV doesn't have audio, does it?
Sure, I understand that the CCTV system is the mechanism by which the audio can be recorded. It's not a separate audio system, it's one system. Right. So I think if it says CCTV including audio, we're happy
so
with that.
Condition 7C could say all recordings, brackets, including audio recordings.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
And just to assist Mr. Feeney, and I hate to bring this up because we want to maintain 24/7, I think the default hours are actually 6 a.m. till 12 noon. I think you mentioned 4 a.m., but I think the actual defaults are 6, but I hate to bring it up because I want 24/7.
Well, I'll double check, but yes, okay, thank you. So I think that's everything on my list, and councillors asked objectors if there are any other conditions. I don't think there was anything else. So I think that's everything, apart from, is there anything from licensing officers to add?
Nothing further to add, thank you.
And governance?
Nothing from us, thank you.
Okay, so you can...
Could I just ask for clarity, is this like a liquor licence, that there's a summary judgment in 7 days, or is this, does this take longer?
Yes, there'll be a summary decision within 5 working days, followed by a full decision with reasons as soon as possible thereafter.
Yeah. So we've reached the end of the meeting. I thank everybody for their time and their input. It's been very helpful to the committee. We have all the information needed, and we will retire to make our decision in private session. You will not hear it today. Instead, the hearing will be closed. As mentioned, a summary determination will be sent to the parties within 5 working days of today's hearing. A full decision will follow as soon as possible and will not commence until the full decision has been sent to the parties. That's your time, sorry, for appealing the decision. Thanks, everyone, for attending, and have a lovely Christmas.
Thank you, applicant.